All right, you guys. So today I'm excited because we're going to be talking about a different side of our tutoring business that we really haven't approached yet. This is the first time we've had this topic. We're going to be talking about how to grow your business using group classes. Now, this isn't the only way that you can grow your business. But there's many ways that you can grow your tutoring business. This is just one way that you can grow it. And so today I have with me Summer Osborne, who she has been a French teacher for the last 16 years. And she's been doing group classes ever since she began doing this. She knew right out of the gate that this is exactly what she wanted to do. Her business name is Global Goose Languages. And she has actually been working with homeschoolers for the last 10 years. And she launched Global Goose about 2 years ago so that she could reach more students. So you guys, without further ado, help me welcome Summer Osborne.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, yeah, you are totally welcome. I'm glad that you are here too, because so many people have questions about this. And, I don't have as much experience as you do in this area. I did host one time in the summer a let's increase your vocabulary kind of group class with kids that it kind of fit with. And at the end of the day, I didn't continue to do it because I didn't enjoy it. And so, I knew that there are other people that are doing this, that they are able to have group classes. They work really well for them. And I was following the conversations that you were having inside of the Ultimate Support Group. I'm like, wow, this girl really knows what she's doing. And this is so cool that, I would love to like bring her on so that she can at least share and open up the mindset of other people that are thinking of doing group classes with their tutoring business.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a great model for certain teachers, depending on your personality type, also for certain students based on their needs. And certain subjects are probably more, it's going to work better for some subjects than for others. Some teachers and tutors might find that group classes are something that they can do on occasion. Maybe they can offer a workshop for a few weeks that would be for a group. Or, they might find occasion to use groups, but maybe they prefer to stick with one-on-one for the majority of their model. For me, this is exactly what I wanted to do when I went into it, because I had experience as a classroom teacher. I left the classroom to stay home with my small children. And, I missed that opportunity. I loved working with groups of teenagers, and I loved seeing them grow from the beginning of the subject when they didn't know a word of French. By the way, that's my subject that I teach is French. I loved watching them grow from, knowing nothing to the level of proficiency that they could reach over time. And so I kind of knew what I wanted to do from the beginning, and the groups model has always worked really well for me.
Oh, that's really, really awesome. Now, we were chatting right before this, you guys, and you had mentioned, Summer, that you did do an interview with someone to kind of like join their business versus, launching your own business. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I had been teaching group classes in my home for a long time, and that kind of limits you a little bit, obviously,
Mhm.
especially when, you know, I have a very niche subject. It's French, but it's specifically I wanted to work with homeschoolers, and so by limiting myself to my local area, it would be kind of difficult to get the group sizes that I wanted and to be able to teach enough. I wanted to work several hours a week, not just one or two,
Mhm.
as I was doing locally. And so when I decided that I might want to look into, reaching more students by being able to teach online, I saw a company that was hiring, and they offered French, and I noticed that they were currently only offering high school French. And so I wrote to them and said, well, I would be interested in offering maybe middle school or elementary French through your company. And so the woman, the owner, she called and did an interview. And when we got to the end of the interview, she told me how much she intended to pay me per student. And of course, I had already seen on the site how much she was charging per student, and it was only half. She was only going to give half of what she was earning through me. Now, I know that some sites, you know, they might charge 30% or whatever the different price points are. And those sites, they might be fair. You can decide for yourself whether what they're taking is fair. In this case, I didn't feel that that was fair at all, because not only was she taking 50%, but she also expected me to find all of the students myself. So I thought, really the only cost to you is the hosting. I can host a website myself. That's
Right.
you know, and so it really, it wasn't fair. And not only in this model do I have more control over my business because it's my own business, but you know, I'm also able to earn more, and it's just more fair. And I think it's more fair to the parents that, you know, I do actually intentionally keep my prices kind of low. That was just one thing that I'm able to do, that because we do have, you know, my husband's income or whatever. So I don't I don't have to charge as much as I could charge for my services. I wanted to keep the prices low, so I'm able to keep the prices low and keep all the money for myself in this model. Whereas if I was working for that company, the students, the parents, the families, they would have been paying a higher fee while I earned less. So I felt
Right.
like it was better for both my students and me to do it this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So today, you guys, we are going to be hitting on all of the big hot topics that you want to know about. We're going to be talking about getting students, pricing, classroom management, homework, all those big things, because I know those are all the things that you guys want to know the answers to. And I want to welcome you guys that are already in here in the chat. We've got Beth in the house. We've got Ramona, Jim. So thank you guys. We've got Suzanne. So glad that you guys have decided to join us. And please feel free to add your questions as we go along that you have about group classes on in here, so that we can make sure to add them as part of our conversation today, because you know it benefits everybody if you guys partake in that way. And if you haven't had an opportunity yet to introduce who you are, what you do, what you tutor, where you live, please do that inside of the chat so that we can welcome you and say hello to you guys. And if you like videos just like this, please hit that like button and think about subscribing, because you'll be able to get more really great content just like this. So we're going to move right on into, you know, getting students. You know, that's really the biggest thing. Like, how do you market yourself? You talked about a website and starting off there. Is that where you started to be able to get your students? You started your own website?
Right. So when I was initially teaching local groups, and as I said, I wanted to be able to reach more students. I had come to a point in my life where I was ready to do that. And it happened to be around the time that a friend of mine whose daughter had classes with me locally, they had moved out of state. And she had looked for a while and not found any program like mine near her. And she said, "Is there a way we could do this online?" And I thought, you know, that's perfect. So, um, I previously I had been trying to round up students for my classes through Facebook marketing. So I continued that process, but I realized, you know, if I was going to try to expand and be online, then I would need a website. And my husband, he runs the website for me. He's very good at all those things. I talked to him about how some of my frustrations with just operating through Facebook, and he helped me solve those problems within my website. So it was
Oh,
great.
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I know one of the things that people they get really confused. They start thinking about all the details on this
Yes,
with
there
when
are a
it
lot of
comes to
details.
getting students, right? And they start thinking, okay, we're working with all these kids. How in the world do we then coordinate all these schedules?
Right. That's
Right?
why it was so limiting when I was only using Facebook, because what was happening is I did have a Facebook page and tried to direct as many people there as possible. I had people who would respond to my posts on the page that I was trying to keep up with, people messaging me through the page, people who, when they found my page, then found my personal profile and were messaging me personally. I was posting in groups, and so people were PMing me because they saw my post in the group, or they were responding to the messages in the group. It was a lot to keep up with. I had, I arranged spreadsheets and said, okay, this person said that they want this class, but how serious were these people? Right.
Right.
And then I was having to chase them all down, go back to this group, find this person's comment and reply. It was a lot of work and a waste of time. So I shared those frustrations with my husband. We agreed that it was smart that I was trying to create some type of like a database out of the information, like this person wants this class, this person wants this class, but I needed a better way to do that. So I use Wix, and it's not the only one that has a feature like this, but he was able to create a form that interested, prospective students, families can fill out the form. And it just takes all that information and puts it into a database for me. And it's held in a very organized way. Also, it filters out the people who are less serious. If they're just commenting on a Facebook post, they may or may not turn into, a client. They may or may not actually eventually sign up for classes. But if they take the step of filling out the form, they're more serious. And, I have this database ready for me to refer to as I start to form everything, put the classes together into groups.
That's awesome. So then people, they fill out that form, and then you're able to then say, hey, we are going to be designing a group at this time, starting on this date. Is this something you're interested in?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, they're expecting, by filling out that form, they're expecting to receive from me an email that says, okay, I see that you have a 9-year-old who's interested in beginner lessons. Currently, I have, 2 or 3 or 4 other students in the same age range. I think that I would be able to fit this into my schedule on Thursdays at 2, beginning late February. How does that sound to you? And the person replies, oh, I'm sorry, I have a conflict on Thursdays, or, that sounds great. Actually, usually I don't get the conflict problem a lot because there is a question on the form where they tell me about their schedule. So really, before I even start that process, I'm looking and I'm seeing, I cross-reference when I am available versus when they're saying they're not available, and it leaves a couple of options. The email might say, we could do this on this day and time or this day and time, which is best for everyone. So
yeah, that's
that.
awesome. Yeah. And so you really, you just jumped right on in with group classes. Like you knew that was going to be the model for you. And it fits well with what you do, because you are teaching kids pretty much at a they're being elementary, middle school, they are pretty much at the same level when it comes to learning that language.
Right.
So you don't have like some of the other issues that some tutors have when it comes to, different skill levels, different struggles or anything like that, which kind of makes it a little easier for you to organize that whole group model. So I know a lot of you are already starting to think, well, how can I start organizing this with who I have and what I have? It is for you. If you do have to worry about skill level and that kind of stuff, it is going to be a numbers game. And if starting off one-on-one is a better fit for you until you grow so much that you have enough people asking for your services, then you can start growing on into a group model. But it was a lot easier for Summer to kind of jump into that group model because she is teaching languages. And so we're not here to convince you guys, like,
no,
this is the only
it's
way.
not for everyone. And some teachers and tutors will find that they can use the group thing. They can do it sometimes. So it might not be for you at all, or it might be for you for part of what you do. Or maybe like me, it's all of what you do. It just depends on a lot of things. I would say a subject where where the kids are kind of coming into it with a blank slate, where there's a lot of you're explaining things to them and walking them through things, would be good for this. I imagine that you could also do kind of SAT prep kind of stuff, workshops and things in this model, because even though they would have various degrees of background knowledge coming into it, ultimately, if you had a SAT prep kind of workbook thing that you were working through, and you had them, doing part of it at home, and you were kind of planning out what you perceive as, what's likely that most students are going to struggle with. I mean, there are a lot of other subjects that can use it besides language, but it is not
Mhm.
for everyone.
Yeah, and you could also think about it too as like you could break it up like a lot of people are looking for summer ideas. No pun on your name at all, but Summer Osborne does the group classes, and you could bring this approach into your summer, right? You
Yes.
know that a lot of kids are struggling with this particular geometry concept, and so it could be really mastering that
Yes.
piece or something like that, which would
Yes.
make it really, really beneficial for everybody.
Yes. If you wanted ideas of what you could do with your subject level, you could go to OutSchool and see what they offer, because a lot of times they have little 6-week, 8-week things, and you could see some of the specific short-term courses that they're offering. So, you might say, decimals.
Mm-hmm.
If you tutor elementary math, you could just do a workshop about decimals,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, or fractions or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, fractions are huge, and they all play into each other. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Check out OutSchool, see what are other people doing 6 to 8 week classes on.
Mhm.
People are looking for more of an experience model versus just watching videos.
Yes.
So I think this is really important to think about that people are not looking to just consume more videos. Nobody is out there saying, I just wish I had more videos that I could
What we need
watch.
more of is videos. You're right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so what we make sure that we have in every lesson is there's some explaining and then there's practice. And what you want to let the parents know and the students know that is, what you're doing that brings value to them is instant feedback.
Mhm.
You explain a concept, you say, this is how we do this thing. And then you say, you guys try it. And they can submit their answers. They can write them on a whiteboard and hold it up to the camera. They can chat it to you if it's language based, or, or they can say the answer right out loud, depending on your group size. And you can let them know, oh, I'm sorry, you've made a mistake here. This is actually how we do it. And
Mhm.
that is really key for students to, as the concept has just been explained to them, get practice and then instant feedback. So that's
Mhm.
how you differentiate yourself from just a set of videos.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so I know that there's going to be people who are going to watch this. They're like, I love this concept of learning French this way. And I have a student who's in the elementary or middle school level. If they're interested in moving forward with you, what is your website so that they can do that?
Oh, that would be globalgooselanguages.com. And so really, if they're interested and want to find a group for them, or, sometimes I can base a group around what you're asking for, right?
Mhm.
So when they get to globalgooselanguages.com, they want to look for the priority list so they can
Mhm.
join the priority list.
Awesome. Fantastic.
And you know what? Elementary and middle, I do work with those age ranges, but that's not actually my focus.
Ah,
My main thing that I do are high school classes, and homeschoolers. These are the classes that they take to actually get credit, their high school foreign language credits.
okay.
So that's actually my big, that's my main thing that I do, is the high school.
Very cool. Good. Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Awesome. Um, do you feel like most of the students that are joining your classes, they're excited to be there? They're the ones that kind of really want to learn French, or does it feel like their parents are kind of forcing them to be there?
Oh, for the most part, I mean, especially the high school level, their parents let them choose what foreign language they want to take.
Hmm.
So they're happy to be there. I did have a student recently, because they have a little survey they fill out at the beginning. Why are you taking French? And she said, I had to have a foreign language credit, and my mom chose French. But even so, she's a perfectly pleasant student. She's wonderful to have in class. She's very engaged. Um, they all seem like they're happy to be there. They're enjoying
Yeah.
it. So there are a few that kind of, they hang back, they participate a little bit less. Um, they might, be slower about turning things in and that kind of thing. But, you know, for the most part, they've chosen the subject and they're happy to be there.
Hmm. So how big are your typical group classes that you have?
It might surprise you. My high school classes, my biggest one has 16 students.
Wow, that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So, and you know, the parents are choosing that priority
Hmm.
list gives them the option. Would you like a smaller class or would you like a
Okay.
larger class? And they understand because they do have the class fees posted on my site. I know that's a thing we've talked about as tutors, whether to have your prices posted or not. For me, I need that so that they'll trust me that I'm saying I will lower the price if we get more in the group. You know,
Hmm.
this is the price that I charge for a group size of this amount. And
Hmm.
so for my model, it's important to have those posted so they can see what the class fees would be, and they can see that if they go for the smaller group, they are going to need to pay a little bit more. And most of them feel like what they need is the larger group so that it can be more affordable to them. But it's funny. I joined your ultimate support group right after I launched my website. Okay,
Oh,
because
very cool.
Facebook saw that I was trying to do this and they're like, hey, maybe you need Joanne. And they were right. I did need Joanne. So, so it was great. But when I got into the group, there were some people saying, have any of you guys ever tried group classes? And there were people like nervous about putting 2 or 3 people together. And
Uh-huh.
I thought, oh no, I've committed myself to teach groups of 16 students. I hope it's going to work out.
Yeah.
I was afraid, but it has been just fine. Um, so then a lot of people ask, because there are other language tutors who keep their groups a lot smaller. And
Hmm.
that's, of course, whatever each tutor decides that they need to do, I totally understand. But they want to know, how in the world are you offering enough speaking practice when you have that many students?
Hmm.
So, first of all, I do not insist that every student speak during class time because
Hmm.
there's a thing called an effective filter with language learning. If I'm insisting that you're speaking, even though you're uncomfortable, you're going to shut down, you're going to learn less. It's not going to be good for the student.
Hmm.
So I don't insist that they speak during class time. And so those that choose to speak are getting plenty of opportunity. The parents are aware of students who are not choosing to speak during class time. So they know just what they're getting. Good communication there. Um, Also, I give them opportunities outside of class time to speak. Those are required, where they make little videos that only I can see,
Oh, very
depending on
cool.
the settings that we do. Right. So they do have the chance to speak. If they're embarrassed to do it in front of the whole class, they can do it in the videos. And then we also can use the breakout feature of Zoom to put them in smaller groups so that they can speak
Mhm.
in those situations.
Awesome. That was exactly what Suzanne just asked, if you use
Oh,
that breakout feature.
I do.
So yes, you do.
I
Awesome.
do, but I don't use it that often because it, the it's hard to, you can only monitor one group of students at a time. The communication is a little rough when you're in with one group. It's hard to, see like who else needs you. You have to go back to the main group, which is empty once you've separated everyone out, and then back to, to pop in on the next group. So it's not my favorite, but if I do have a well-planned, well-organized, very structured activity that's conducive to group work, then I do use it. It does have to be very structured because students love to say, I don't understand what to do. I didn't know how to do this. And if you're not there watching them because you're in a different group, they will waste time. And of
Yeah,
course,
absolutely.
I don't want to have any wasted time during my sessions. So
And do you use Zoom during your sessions?
yes, I do
You do.
use Zoom.
They just changed the feature so you can jump from room to room and don't have to go into the main room
Oh,
anymore.
great. I guess I need to update then. I'm always running behind on my Zoom updates. In fact, at one point when I first tried the breakout sessions, they were working very poorly. It would tell me that they were all assigned to a group, but students would come back and say, it put me in a group all by myself. And so when I contacted help, they were like, you're about 10 updates behind. Okay, that's the
All right.
problem. So keep your Zoom updated, always updating.
Yes. big key tip right there. Always keep it
For all of us.
updated.
Yeah.
And if any of your students are ever having like major issues, let them know that they need to update their
Ah,
Zoom as well.
okay. Thank
And
you.
that will
Yeah.
definitely help.
I hadn't thought of that.
So you kind of mentioned like the kids getting off track sometimes when they kind of go into some of the breakout groups once in a while. How do you
Mhm.
handle them staying on track during class, that they're really focusing on what it is that you're presenting?
Okay. Well, to a certain extent, I do not hold myself responsible for that, if that makes sense. To a
Mm-hmm.
certain extent, because I'm teaching high school primarily, they're going to get out of it what they put in. And so, it is what it is. However, the key to keeping students engaged is always, have engaging content. So my lessons are very well prepared. I've got a good rapport with all of them. I was really relieved when I first started to see that I was able to build a rapport in a community within a group, even though we weren't physically in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good. But also, depending on what the activity is that we're doing that's providing practice, I will often say, okay, I can see how many participants are here today, even if someone might be absent or whatever. I can see that, it says there are 12 participants today. One of them is me. There are 11 of you. I'm asking this question. I need all 11 of you to reply in the chat because I need to make sure that you understand what we're saying. So we can do that. Also, I'll do a thing at the beginning of class where I'll say, hey guys, we're doing a lot of spoken work today, a lot of spoken exercises. These are numbered. It'll be exercise A has 12 questions that have to be answered or whatever. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give each one of you a number. And just remember your number all during class today. And every activity that we do, you answer just that one question. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really focused on answering their question, but they're also, once they've answered theirs, listening to so many examples of all of the other people speaking. And so it's a way to keep it going quickly. You don't want to ever let it lag, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want
Right.
everybody waiting for a long time for Susie to answer number 4. If Susie knew in advance that she has problem number 4, she can be thinking of it before you call on her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I do. And also they have some response sheets that they're replying on that are written. So when they turn in their homework at the end of the week, it would include some of what we did during class time. So that holds them responsible for that class time.
Oh, very cool. Awesome. You talked about like that you are paying attention to if they're there or not. Does the pricing change if they've missed a lesson? Do the parents prepay up front and they just kind of lose out on that lesson? How does that work?
Right. So that's actually one of the great things about my model and about the group model. If you set it up right, the parents have never even suggested that they should not have to pay for a session that their child was absent from, because they understand I was teaching whether their child was there or not, right? In addition to that, they're still getting something out of it, because if I have a lesson that's like an hour long, I'm recording all of the instructional parts of that lesson. So don't record the things that the students say, because that goes back to the affective filter. I don't want to make them extra nervous and, hinder their progress. But I record myself explaining, here's this, okay? Oh, this is the vocabulary that we're using now. Let me pronounce all of these words for you. And then after I record myself saying that, then I pause recording and I ask the students to repeat or answer the questions or practice. And so by the end of the hour-long lesson, I have a recording that, depending on the ratio of instruction to practice, could be anywhere from just a 10-minute video to a 45-minute video, right? And so that is posted after class each week, and the students who were absent simply watch the video. So the parents completely understand that what they're paying for is, it is a set of classes, and they're going to pay for those whether their child is there or not.
And you had mentioned too that they do you do have them sometimes submit videos of them talking. Do you have any other homework that you expect them to do outside of class?
Absolutely, for the high school students, because
Mm,
what my model is, and this wouldn't be required for anyone who does a group. It's just what my model is, what I'm marketing to people, what I saw was the need in the homeschool community that I
mhm,
wanted to fill with my passion. So that need was that they needed a class that is, comparable to what you would take in a public or private high school.
mhm,
So and what they also needed is that their schedules, they only want to get together one time per week because they have a lot of other things. They have other online classes, they have sports, they have co-ops that they attend, and all kinds of things. So I had to take what I was doing, 5 days a week in a brick and mortar school, and convert that to a program where they came to class for 1 hour a week, but it would somehow be the equivalent of 5 hours a week of instruction. So I'm actually establishing for them 4 hours of independent study, and then I'm grading all of that. So I know that that sounds like a lot of work, but my pricing model takes that into account, and that's what the parents know that they're paying for. That's the deal that we have with the parents. You don't
mhm.
have to do that if you're working with a group. You don't have to give homework, or you could say, here are some enrichment optional things. The key would just be to be very clear on what you're offering
Yeah,
and what you're
yeah.
selling. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of us being able to run our own businesses is because we get to make all of those decisions for our business. If
Mhm.
something doesn't work for us, we don't have to go to, the administration or go to, our boss and say, here's what I'm suggesting or any of that. It's like, no, you get to design this the way
Mhm.
that works for you and works for your students and works for the parents that are paying you.
Right. Yes. And I really enjoy, seeing the students' homework because, first of all, I give them feedback on their homework that helps them grow. And these sweet students are so appreciative. They're like, thank
Hmm.
you so much. Now I did better on the test because you helped me through that test review.
Aw.
And also, when they have writing assignments and the videos that they do, sometimes the things that these students are able to do is just really impresses me. So that's a part of my job that I really enjoy.
Mhm. That's awesome. Now, during your sessions, do you ever have students that kinda try to take over the session or
Derail us a little bit.
Yeah.
That does not ever come up in the high school class. I have never had a problem with the high school students. Sometimes the middle school or elementary kids can be a little bit, attention seeking, or maybe they're just wiggly because that's the nature of younger students. Some of them like to hold up funny things to the camera. I had a sweet 7-year-old who his dad was in charge that day of being with him, and they had been to the pool, and so he was dancing around in his swimsuit. So you learn a couple of tricks to handle situations like that. They're all basically, know Zoom, get to know Zoom very well and what you can do with it. So um, turn off the camera. That's instantly what I did when this boy started dancing around in his swimsuit. Just cut off the camera. um, Also, I use the touch to talk feature. So with a group of 16 people, you definitely need everyone to be muted unless they're intentionally trying to say something, right? You don't need everyone's dogs barking in the background and phones
Right.
ringing.
Oh my god,
That's
that'd be crazy.
No, it would be crazy. So as the students enter, they're muted. If they're going to answer a question, and they do answer plenty of questions during class, they'll hold down their space bar to do that. But sometimes, occasionally in a group where the students were unmuting themselves and not contributing to class discussion, I just turn off. You can do it right within the meeting. Just don't allow participants to unmute themselves.
Mhm.
So I did that for a few minutes, but then when it's time to practice again, I had to turn the feature back on. So it gets a little tricky. That's when you need to then speak to the parent afterwards and
Yep.
say, I'm going to need you to sit next to your child
Mhm.
next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that, I mean, especially in a group setting like that, you have that amazing opportunity and you are working mostly with homeschool parents still, right?
Mhm.
For the most part. So they already they don't mind actually sitting by their child while this whole thing is going on.
No, yeah. They know, you know, they realize that this is a group thing. You know, if you explain, especially if you can show them a video, this is the behavior that I had from your child in the last class. Could you help him, you know, rein this in a little bit? Yeah, they completely
Yeah.
understand.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, so because most of the kids are muted so that you can actually be able to instruct and it's not distracted with all the different noises, and you got your ADHD kids who are like flying off the roof with something like that, right? So they're mostly muted. Do they have to ask their question if they have a question for you? Do they just type that into the chat?
Um, I take questions in all of the three ways that they can pose their questions, which would be they'll put them in the chat. There's a feature where they can click, you know, raise your hand, which
Mm-hmm.
works a lot better than the other option they sometimes do, which is they sometimes just actually raise their hand. In a group, in a large group, physically raising their hand doesn't work as well because it doesn't show me everyone's face at once. I have to
Right.
kind of scroll through and I wouldn't be aware that they have their hand raised.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing is, of course, I do build in moments where I say, does anyone have a question? And then they just kind of chime in, you know, hold down their space bar and
Mm-hmm.
ask the question.
Yeah. Awesome. Fantastic. Wow. So it is really great. Like you said, it's great to know what are the features of Zoom that you can utilize.
Mm-hmm.
And Zoom has a great training too. So if you have never gone through a training with Zoom, you can go to Zoom and you can schedule a training or join one of their current trainings that they have going on and really get comfortable with their features that they have. And also you can I have a Zoom, how to use Zoom features video inside of my YouTube channel. So if you are interested in checking that out more, I've got a couple of videos I've done on Zoom. Feel free to use inside of my channel. If you're on my page, youtube.com/Joanne Kaminski, there's a search bar right on my page. All you have to do is type the topic, just type in Zoom and you'll find some more videos that deal specifically with that topic. Now we've got some more questions. Oh, Kim just asked, how did you learn all the features of Zoom? Attend one of their webinars or was it just through experience?
Okay. I did not attend a webinar. So when I first set up Zoom, I just went through my husband, again, he's the techie person, right? He set up my website for me. He helped me get to know Zoom. So we went through the different options in your settings for your account. And if there was anything that I was like, what does this mean? You know, we kind of searched on their site and got an explanation of it. And I talked to him about what I would like to be able to do within my classes. And he said, okay, let's practice that. So he went to the downstairs computer and I used the upstairs computer and we had a practice call. And I said, okay, I'm going to share my screen. It was the most basic first thing that we want to
Yeah.
be able to do as tutors, right? So I
Yep.
shared my screen. Okay. I want the student to be able to write on my screen. So let me see how I do that. And so we just kind of played around with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly how I started when I started using Skype. I had my husband in the room next to me while I was in my office trying, just playing with the features and seeing, okay, does it look the way I would like run back and forth between like both rooms and be like,
Mm-hmm.
does it look the way I want it to look? Like, what does the screen look like? Like, is
Right.
it clear or is it blurry? Or
Yeah. Well, after I had built a rapport with the students and I had been working with them for a while, and so by then they were respecting me as, you know, someone who knows things. I did start to kind of experiment in my classes, and I would say, because I would encourage you not to try to learn it all at once, but you know, to focus on what you're really going to need at
yeah,
first. And then that's like how I came into the breakout rooms. You know, I was like, there should be a way for me to do breakout rooms. And then I asked in your ultimate support group and they said, yeah, it's in the settings. So I went and adjusted the settings. And then I went to my students and said, guys, this is the first time that I'm using breakout rooms. So I want you to tell
hmm
me how this goes. And, you know, and so we just tried it out. So,
yep,
and then I had on their homework list, please tell me how this worked for you and whether you enjoyed it or whatever. And so one of the students replied, I had used breakout rooms in another online class before, generally it's something that I like to do. So.
Oh, very cool. And so that's something to think about is, if there's something that a feature that you are looking for, ask around and see, does that feature exist? Is there something like that? And people will definitely be able to help you. And one of the things that I found out, like just attending like the webinar was actually really helpful for me, because I was trying to like understand the difference between Skype, which I was really familiar with, into Zoom, and trying to make like the comparisons and all of that, like how will this work the way I want it to work. But a lot of people, when they're first getting started, they don't even know what questions to ask.
Yes, you don't know
Right,
what
because
you
they don't
don't
even
know.
know. They don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't know what features they want. They've never utilized it, and so they don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think in that case, then check out the webinar and
Mm-hmm.
see if it could be helpful for you, or check
Well,
your
you
own.
can also, like, once you start working with a group, sometimes you just end up saying to yourself, I really wish I could, and then
Mhm.
you just ask, and you probably can.
Just ask.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I find in our wonderful group, Ultimate Support Group for Online Tutors, I love this group. The people in there are so helpful and encouraging. I think if I had a question and I wanted to play around on something in Zoom just to see how it would work out, I could probably pop into the group and say, hey, could anybody jump in Zoom with me and we
Mhm.
can work on this feature together? There's probably someone in there who's willing to do it with you.
Yep. It is amazing. It absolutely happens all of the time. So now I want to discuss really like what are some of those pros and cons of doing group classes now that you are like go-to expert on these group classes. What are some of the pros and cons that you've kind of just noticed overall?
Okay. Well, for pros, I would say pros for the student would be they enjoy to be in a group. They like that. It makes it more fun for them. And for a foreign language, I mean, they do need conversational practice. And so they can get that by, asking and answering questions in a group. Also, since the group pricing makes the lessons more affordable for individuals, not only is that a savings for the family, but it also means there are some families who wouldn't have this opportunity otherwise, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's a pro for me as well, that I'm able to reach students who otherwise would be trying to learn French through just like Rosetta Stone or something that's not
Mhm.
as high quality of instruction. So um, those are pros for the students. Pros for me, it's exactly what I want to do for one thing. So I really get a lot of energy from the students kind of playing off of each other and have kind of the relaxed atmosphere that we get in a group. I really love that. Um, Also, I'm able to reach more students as far as just my availability. I
Mhm.
actually homeschool my own children as
Ah.
well. So that's one thing that has kind of helped me reach homeschoolers is they
Mhm.
relate to me. They understand that I'm going to relate to them. They understand that I know kind of how this whole thing works. So, but with homeschooling my own children, that means I'm not available to teach French 40 hours a week. I only have
Right.
about 9 or 10 hours that I can teach live. And then I of course, have the kind of homework for myself that goes with that, where I'm grading and lesson planning. So um, I would only be able to teach 9 students if it was one-on-one.
Mhm.
Whereas with the groups, of course, I'm teaching far more than that. So
Right.
those are the pros. Cons of group sessions. For me, there are not, there's nothing that I don't like about it.
Mhm.
I mean, it can be, I have a lot of students that I have to keep up with. That's true. I have a lot of parents that I have to communicate with. It does take a lot of organization to set it all up at the beginning, but that organization is worth it because what I'm doing, as I said, primarily it's the high school students, so these are classes to them that run from August to May.
Mhm.
When they sign up, when I work through the details of what time are we going to, all of that, I've then got people committed for the entire year. I don't
Mhm.
have to market very often at all because, I do some marketing in January through March, April, and then I'm set. I'm set
Mhm.
for the whole school year. So,
That's awesome.
even though it does take that additional amount of work, to me, it's worth that.
Right.
That's just the price of it. So, now if it's not what the student needs, then obviously right?
Hmm.
Um, our job is to give the students what they need. So,
Hmm.
um, for what we're doing, the students are getting what they need. But if you are teaching, if you have a student who's like, I'm struggling in this specific area, they really need probably your one-on-one attention. And so it's
Hmm.
not for every student and it's not for every tutor.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, when I started doing it, because I did start doing like the one-on-one tutoring. I absolutely love the one-on-one tutoring. I just felt in my element doing the one-on-one tutoring. I hated the classroom management and all of that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And when I moved into doing a group course, I felt like I was moving right back on into the one thing I hated the most, which was having to deal with that classroom management stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, for me, it was like, okay, nope, that is
Not
not
doing it. Mm-hmm.
for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love working with adults
In
in group
groups.
sessions, but working with kids in that session, not my ideal thing. But that does not mean that, like, that Summer's way or Joanne's way is the only way. The only way you're going to know if this is a good fit for you or not is to try it out, get out
Mm-hmm.
there, do it. If you got to listen to your gut, because your gut knows a heck of a lot more information than you give it credit for, right? So don't listen to all of the feedback that people say out there in the world, whether it's on Facebook or it's somewhere else. Listen to, where does your heart speak to you? What feels right for you? And you can't go wrong. I just want to thank you, Summer, for sharing all of your experience, your knowledge, your enthusiasm at the table. And you always are inside of the Ultimate Support Group, participating, helping other people out. I want to personally thank you for that, and being an amazing member that just really keeps our group humming in such a positive way. So well
Well,
done with what you've done
thank
with your
you.
business. It is really something to be applauded. I mean, you've
Thank
created
you.
an incredible business for yourself, and I know lots of other people are going to be inspired after they watch this and hear what you've been able to do for yourself and your
Well, thank
business.
you. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for creating the ultimate support group for online tutors, because it has been really, really helpful for me. And I really enjoy the community that we have in there, and, helping other people and getting help myself. So thank you.
Yep. Absolutely. So if you're not a member of that, that's on Facebook. Just type into the search bar Ultimate Support Group for Online Tutors, and you can come and join us as well. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, Summer,
Thank you.
and
You
thank
too.
you for taking the time out again and hanging out with us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.